What if acid rained down from the sky instead of water? Today, we are going to see terrifying aspect of global warming. But before that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The story begins in France, where we see footage of a strike at a factory where an accident has occurred, leaving many workers badly injured. The remaining employees demand justice from the factory owner, who refuses to take responsibility. The situation escalates and the employees start fighting and vandalizing, even clashing with the police. Michael's girlfriend Karen was also a victim of the factory accident, which angers him so much that he brutally beats a policeman. This footage was recorded, leading to Michael being jailed. He was released but was not allowed to leave the house for a few months with a device attached to his leg. Michael was divorced. His ex-wife's name was Alice, and they had a daughter named Selma who was very disturbed by her parents' separation. Michael now loved Karen, whose legs were severely injured in the factory accident. Currently, Selma was Alice's responsibility. Selma was in a boarding school where she had a passion for horse riding. One day during a horse riding class, she saw some children laughing at the viral video of her father. Enraged, Selma attacked one of them, smearing horse waste on his face and humiliating him in front of everyone. Alice was called after this incident, and despite talking to the principal, she was very upset with her daughter Selma. Although Selma was not expelled, she became very sad and irritable. Since her father was at home, she told her mother that she wanted to go to her father's place. Selma sees on the news that there is 1,000 times more acid rain in Latin America and thousands of animals have died due to pollution and global warming. There was also a threat that this rain could soon come to Europe. Her father Michael advises her not to watch such news. The next day, she returned to her mother Alice's house. It was raining that day and Selma's room window had been left open, resulting some water to come inside. Alice uses a towel to dry it, but shortly after, the viewers see that the towel's color is changing because the rainwater contains some amount of acid. The next day it didn't rain, but the sky was filled with clouds. There were reports of sudden acid rains in different parts of the country, injuring many people and animals. Hence, people were constantly watching the news. Michael went to his job, where he noticed the ground was wet and sticky, which he found strange. Alice had also gone to her job. She was a nurse, and Selma had gone to her school. In the afternoon, everyone received some news alerts indicating that there was a possibility of rain in the area and people were advised to stay indoors. Alice called Michael, worried, and wanted to bring Selma back from school before the rain started. All the students' cell phones had been taken away, so Alice couldn't call Selma. Time was short. Alice's car was in the garage, so Michael went to her with his car first. They headed to the school together, but upon arrival, they learned that the children had gone to the forest for horseback riding and had left their phones behind. The two hurried towards the forest, but there was huge traffic jam because everyone was trying to save their children. When they didn't find them at the school, they headed to the forest as well. Police were not allowing anyone to go further as the sky was covered with dark clouds. Michael was worried about his daughter, so he drove off the road. Near the forest, they had to stop the car and continued on foot. Meanwhile, Selma, who wasn't very good at horseback riding, lagged behind the other children. A few drops of rain fell near Selma, burning the wood on the ground and injuring the horses. The frightened horses ran away, causing Selma to fall. Michael reached the stables searching for his daughter but couldn't find her. The horses there were very agitated. Michael ran outside and Selma was coming in the same direction. Luckily, they found each other. They quickly took shelter in the stables, and it started raining acid shortly after. Drops were leaking through the roof, burning the ground, clearly visible to them. Michael found a blanket to cover himself and Selma. The phones were still working, so he informed Alice of their location. The acid rain made visibility difficult, but Alice finally found the building and parked the car nearby for Michael and Selma to get in. They managed to get back to the road. But at that time, they heard screams as people were burning due to the acid rain. The road was jammed again and cars were running out of fuel. When Alice found a way through, she turned the car to the right, but there were cars everywhere. A man with a burned face tried to get into their car, but Michael, showing no mercy, kicked him out and locked the door securely. Once they found a clear path, they immediately drove away, pushing aside any cars that blocked their way. Selma was terrified, and seeing the paint on the roof changing color, she started losing her mental composure. After some time, the rain stopped, but the area was devastated with many people dead and a lot of destruction. The family stopped in a supermarket parking lot, gathering lots of clothes and blankets to cover themselves and the car. Alice called her brother, but he couldn't help as the roads were blocked. Michael was worried about his girlfriend Karen and tried calling her, but it went to voicemail. For the next few hours, they kept driving, trying to leave the country like many others. In the evening, due to the acid damage, the car finally broke down. The back door was badly jammed and could only be opened by Selma from the inside, who kicked it multiple times. There was a strong smell of acid everywhere, so Michael told her not to breathe deeply. Finally, the door opened and Selma got out. With the car no longer functional, they continued on foot. By evening, they entered a building and were disheartened to see that it had been prepared for a birthday party, but the people who made these preparations never got to celebrate. A cat had also entered and was eating the food lying around. Selma wanted to pick up the cat, but Michael stopped her, warning that its fur might have acid on it. A little while later, Michael managed to contact his girlfriend Karen and was relieved to learn she was okay. However, all the patients were being moved to another location. During their conversation, the signal cut out, ending the call. When Michael went to get tap water to drink, he suspected it might also contain acid, making it hard to say if it was safe. He filled a plastic container with water and placed it in front of the cat, thinking if the cat was affected, the water wasn't safe. This idea of using the poor cat as a test made Selma very upset. She angrily poured the water down the sink. In the fridge, they found some bottles of water. Michael also found some foil, which he planned to put on their shoes to prevent them from melting quickly due to the acid. Later, he discovered that the container he had filled with tap water had melted, confirming that the tap water was not safe. They now had only alcohol and some food brought for the party to consume. Selma was worried as they were heading north, hoping the dangerous rain wouldn't reach there, but she doubted they could make the journey on foot. As Michael and Alice were planning their journey, they got into an argument. Michael became furious, broke a glass, and stormed off. In the middle of the night, they were awakened by the sound of water dripping from weak spots in the roof, realizing it wasn't water but acid. Selma couldn't sleep, so she went looking for the cat. But she finds blood stains that lead her to the dead body of the poor cat. The cat died from the same water that Michael had given it, and this made Selma very sad. Distressed, she went to sleep with her mother. The next morning, the family resumed their journey on foot. It wasn't raining yet, and many others were also walking, trying to leave the area. As time passed, the crowd grew larger. To leave this place, everyone had to cross a bridge, but due to the acid, the bridge had become so weak that it couldn't support many people at once. Therefore, the military was allowing a few people to cross at a time. The crowd was so large that Alice got separated from her family. Before they could cross the bridge, it began to collapse, causing panic. Alice was caught in the crowd and fell off the broken railing into the water along with a few others. The water was unsafe as it contained acid, causing Alice to suffer painfully. Selma saw this and ran to save her mother, but it was too late. Alice died in front of Michael and Selma, leaving both father and daughter devastated. Since the bridge could no longer be used and there was a threat of acid rain, the police and military decided to take the remaining people to a safe location through a forest. Everyone was loaded into military trucks. On the way, the military received new orders and everyone was made to get off the trucks to continue on foot. In the forest, the military used red smoke as black clouds gathered again, signaling imminent acid rain. People panicked and started running in different directions. During this chaos, Michael and Selma got separated from the others because Selma, being very weak and tired, couldn't run fast. Michael had to carry and support her. They kept running and fortunately they found a tunnel. Michael quickly cleared the path and they went inside immediately. The rain was so heavy that some acidic water began to seep into the tunnel. They had to move quickly, but at one point Michael fell and got injured because of the acid. Hours later, they found an exit from the tunnel, and by then the rain had stopped. Michael couldn't call for help as his cell phone battery was dead. They walked for hours and eventually reached a place with houses, but there were no people in sight. Exhausted and in pain, Michael collapsed on the ground. Selma stood in the middle of the road shouting for help. When Michael woke up, he found himself in a house. This house belonged to a woman named Dorothy who lived there with her son. Dorothy gave them clean water to drink and some clothes to wear, but refused to give them food because she had very little for herself. Michael didn't force her as they planned to leave soon. As Selma explored the house, she noticed that all the rooms, especially the roof, were weakened, and the house was at risk of collapsing if it rained again. Selma saw a medical machine, and Dorothy explained that it was for her son because his kidneys were failing and the machine was keeping him alive. Dorothy asked Michael to help her move the large machine to the basement to keep it safe. Michael agreed to help because the house was not safe for Dorothy's son due to the risk of collapse and the acidic smell, which could be deadly. After moving the machine downstairs, Dorothy thanked them and even offered some food, suggesting they could stay for a few days if they wanted. However, Michael knew that the place was too dangerous to stay in. No one was going to survive as acid rain continued to pour down in this part of the world. This wasn't just happening here, but was spreading across Europe and now Asia as well. Michael took an axe and tried to break into a neighboring house, but he had to return as there was a likelihood of rain. A dangerous storm had come, destroying the weak houses in the vicinity, and Dorothy's house was also about to face the same fate. Dorothy knew her house couldn't withstand the storm, so she made a difficult decision to stay in the basement with her son, waiting for the end. For safety, Michael prepared to sleep in the garage instead of a room. Soon the house's roof started breaking and melting, especially the water pipes, and the paint on the walls began to look like blood. Thick smoke started coming out of the heater. The sound of the house collapsing woke up Michael and Selma. They wanted to save Dorothy and her son, but it was too late, and Dorothy had already locked the door herself. Michael pulled Selma away from the door as she screamed the boy's name, wanting to save them. Sadly, Michael had to push her into Dorothy's car and then open the garage to escape. Outside, it was pitch dark, and only the car's headlights provided some guidance. However, the acid rain had damaged the car's system. Michael tried to drive fast, but the car, which ran on electricity, was continuously giving system failure warnings due to the rain. The computer voice kept warning about the system malfunction as the car stopped on its own. Michael tried to restart it several times and kept driving aimlessly. Eventually, they reached an open field that had turned into a swamp due to the acid. Michael stopped the car, and Selma told him he was lost, leading to an argument between them. Michael yelled at Selma and got out of the car, but as he walked, he realized his shoes were burning. He quickly returned to the car, but Selma was gone. She had run away, terrified of the burning ground. To save herself, Selma climbed onto a tractor that was sinking into the ground. Meanwhile, Michael, worried, searched for his daughter, but the car was stuck in the mud, forcing him to continue on foot. He reached Selma just in time, carried her on his back, and brought her back to the car. However, the acid had severely burned Michael's feet, causing him to lose consciousness. The next morning, a military truck found them and took them to a camp where Michael received treatment. Unfortunately, his legs had to be amputated. Selma asked the people there about her uncle, but according to the records, no one had survived. Millions of people had died due to the acid rain. Heartbroken, Selma sat by her father's side. She didn't have the heart to tell him the devastating news that everyone they knew was dead. And with this, the film comes to an end. If you liked the video, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button.